What is the success of Op Sindoor in the true sense? And what really made Pakistan? I still remember I did a story saying that on 7th May, when Indian Air Force and the Indian Army struck the 9 terror camps, the DGMO called up the Pakistan DGMO, and then he was asked to, the Pakistan DGMO did not really talk, right? But on the 10th, they reached out to India. They reached out to the rest of the world also, US also. So what is the real success of Op Sindoor?
If I may just add a word, what our DGMO said, that when he called after the initial strikes and said, look, we don't want to do anything else, we can call it off, he got a brusque reply. He got a brusque reply that, no, we are not calling anything off. Be prepared for something, a tough reply from us. Yes.
Yeah. Yes. So I think this is a very clear enunciation of the national security strategy, firstly. That, it has brought about a real paradigm change in the way we are going to deal with such incidents in the future. That we will hit them hard where it matters and at the time and place of our choosing. So I think this is a huge change in the entire strategic thought process of the nation. Coming to your point about the point where they waved the white flag and called for ceasefire, I think the intensity, the ferocity of the attacks by the Indian Air Force on the 10th shook them up really. Attacking their primary air bases, hitting them where it matters, where it hurts most, is something which really made them run and come up with the white flag and call for a ceasefire.
Just for the audience, when you say, you hit them where it hurts the most, what does that mean?
Like we just mentioned about, the enemy air dominance or air superiority. If I am able to strike his airfields and his critical assets, which prevents him from launching his air force, I've achieved a certain favorable air situation or a degree of control of the air. Now he understands that if I'm able to target with pinpoint accuracy the runways, the hangars, the communications centers, the radars, he knows what is going to come in the next wave of attack if it happens. Okay, it will paralyze him completely.
I mean, some of these weapons are so accurate, weapons that Rafale fired, for example, that they could, God forbid, but they could cut a neat hole through this building and land on this cup of tea. So if you see pictures of Bahawalpur, those 3 domes, you see holes on them. Domes have not collapsed. You see domes. So the missile has gone through the dome and gone inside, and then it has burst. And you can then see how much destruction it causes inside. Is my description correct?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And if I may add, and please tell me if I'm wrong, on the 10th, when Indian Air Force was carrying out this massive assault, and we know this from the Pakistanis, because Pakistanis said that every missile was air-launched. Even BrahMos, they didn't say they were ground-launched. They said everything was air-launched, which means a large number of IAF aircraft were doing all this tamasha with so many of Pakistan's wanted airfields. But the Pakistani Air Force never rose to contest them. How did that happen?
Typically a classical case of, a strike like this would be preceded by blinding his radars and neutralizing his surface-to-air guided weapon systems.
There is an expression for that, sir, if you can tell them.
Yeah, it is called the SEAD, Suppression of Enemy Air Defenses, or DAD. It spells like dead. That is destruction of enemy air defenses. So this is usually a prelude before you carry out any other deep offensive strike. But it's not always necessary to carry it out. There are ways and means we can avoid the enemy air defenses by what we call tactical routing, by selecting, routes even for the weapons that will avoid coming in the way of the enemy air defenses. So that's what we did at that time.
While we talk about the aircraft that were in use, the fact is that the Integrated Air Defense Command also had a huge role. Remember, viewers, that the Pakistanis had launched multiple waves of drone attacks. Now, some of these drones in the initial phases were just reconnaissance drones, it didn't have any munitions, it didn't have any bombs or explosives on it, right? What they were trying to do was try to find where the Indian air defense systems were. And then Pakistan would have launched what he said is SEAD and the DR. So how did the Integrated Air Defense Command really work? And who is in charge of the Integrated Air Defense Command? You have the Army and you also have the Air Force.
The Integrated Air Command and Control System is primarily an Air Force network of all the sensors as well as the shooters. I'm using these two words. Sensors are radars, detection systems of various kinds. And the shooters are the ground-to-air missiles or air-to-air missiles, which are carried by the fighter aircraft. So now the entire system of sensors and shooters is integrated on one network. This is the IACCS. Now the Indian Army has got a newer version of it called the Akash Tir, which has now been integrated along with the Indian Air Force's IACCS system. So this integrated network now has got every single entity on one common grid. So it gives us more flexibility as to which weapon to use. If I have a slow-moving drone coming in, I'm not going to fire a very expensive missile at it. I know it's a slow-moving drone. I will allot it to one of the army guns. If it's a ballistic missile coming, I'll allot it to a particular unit which can tackle it. So overall, there is not only economy of effort, there is actually you're getting the best bang for the buck.
Your system can identify what threat is coming, whether it's a ballistic missile or it's a cruise missile or it's a drone.
Generally, we can. The speeds are known, the trajectories are predictable. So the trajectory of a ballistic missile, for example, is quite predictable. The cruise missiles are not very high speed. The drones are really low speed. So going by what we call the characteristics of the radar track, we can make out what kind of a threat is.
So cruise missiles, some are high speed. BrahMos is high speed.
Yes.
BrahMos is high speed, and you can see the difference between a high speed cruise missile and a not high speed, a subsonic cruise missile. So if all of you have seen that picture over Sirsa on the night of 9th and 10th, I think around 1 a.m. So that missile, which one of our missiles has intercepted and hit over Sirsa, is obviously a cruise missile which is not traveling that fast. And the Pakistanis said that was a Fateh 2.
It could have been a Fateh 2.
Could have been a Fateh 2 because that's what Shehbaz Sharif said, that we used a Fateh 1 and Fateh 2. So that is how, this is a very complex thing because even if one gets through, it can cause damage.
We have the 36 Rafales in place. We talk about fighter jets, squadron strength. Right now, on paper, India has 31 squadrons of fighters. When I say on paper, I say because it's the official record. But then many of them, the MiG-21s are 2 squadrons. The actual numbers in terms of real fighting capability is less than 30. The sanctioned strength is 42. What do you think that needs to be done? You're talking about Tejas Mark 1A delivery has been delayed. People say a lot blame also goes to the Air Force because it kept changing the requirements. The Air Force and the Air Force chief has, blamed the production agencies for failed promises. So where does the Air Force go from here? You're talking about Pakistan getting the 5th generation fighters from China. China has already developed what they term it as the 6th generation fighters, 2 6th generation fighters. We are still on 4.5 generation and not in large numbers.
So, the nation and the leadership is quite aware that the depleting strength is a matter of concern and we need to, take remedial measures. We had placed all our bets on the LCA, the timely deliveries and production of the LCA Mark 1As, the 2s, and further on the AMCA. Here is, like I said, where the industry needs to really, everybody, all the players need to put their shoulder behind the wheel to get things moving much faster than what is happening now. Because timely deliveries is very essential to keep our strength as desired to counter any adversary at this stage. The aspect about our adversaries getting the 5th and 6th generation fighters, there is no denying that there is a lot of hype about the capabilities of these systems. We really don't know what the true capability. But nevertheless, we granted that a 5th generation fighter will come with certain enhanced features, more than what we have right now, the 4.5 generation fighters. And here is where the AMCA, the AMCA, which is designed and developed by the ADA and going to be manufactured now in India, should roll out at the earliest and, fill in the depleting strength of squadrons at the earliest. So it's very critical that we take it on as a national task to be able to fulfill the shortcomings in terms of numbers immediately.
So, while we of course talk about shortcomings in the fighter squadron strength, the fact is that besides the fighters, there are also other things that are much needed, which are part of the war. For example, AWACS, it's the eye in the sky, or refuelers. Both these programs, India has been on it for so many years. So how critical are these systems also? And when you say, when you look at the Air Force, how critical is the Air Force right now in terms of capability gap? The Air Force has carried out the operation very well, but in terms of a continued conflict, right? How critical is the Air Force right now?
So, like you mentioned, fighter aircraft form a part, the cutting edge of any Air Force. They are the front edge, the shooters, the combat elements. But apart from that, like you mentioned, we need the combat enhancers or the combat support elements, which come in the form of the AWACS. AWACS is an aircraft with a radar fitted on it, which can look well into the enemy territory. So it's an airborne warning and control system. So they are all what we would term as the combat enhancers. And then we have the combat support elements like the air-to-air refueling. And so all of them go hand in hand. It is not merely bolstering capability in one direction. Just the combatants are not good enough. We need simultaneous bolstering of capability in all the other fronts also. And we've realized this some years ago. Unfortunately, the number of people or the players in the market for air-to-air refueling, for example, is quite limited.
You have the Airbus and the Boeing, which is there.
For the AWACS, we had decided that we will go the indigenous route. So unfortunately, we don't manufacture a big transport aircraft in India. So we have to import that aircraft, and now we put in our systems, our radar on top of that.